Yay.
Okay, hello and happy Tuesday, but today is a special day. I have my dear friend Steve Schaus with me. And Steve, we go back to the 80s.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean like the 80s, rockin'
The
80s.
80s.
Yeah, from college days. He was at Stetson and I was at UCF and we were good friends back then. And then years later, families that we just love, the Schaufs love your wife's family and all grew up together and now here we are, one big happy family.
There we are. Yeah.
And you work for Edward Jones, Tim
Yes.
works for Edward Jones. Our kids are best friends.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
I like it. God puts good people in our lives.
Yes, he does.
Okay, well today is September 11th.
Yep.
Now, I remember on September 11th, I was pregnant with Cole. Hunter was in kindergarten, my oldest. Holly was at the house and I was babysitting a good friend of ours, Lacey Bowden. I was babysitting her daughter, Lindsay. And so we're sitting there watching the Disney Channel. And all of a sudden, my mom calls and she goes, she was at work and she said, "Are you watching the news?" I'm like, "Nope, watching the Disney Channel." And she said, "Turn it on." And I turned it on. I sat there. I'm already pregnant and emotional anyhow. And I remember just boo-hooing. And you're glued to the TV. I guess the kids were old enough to kind of take care of themselves because they were there. But I was just glued for hours to the TV. And I remember where I was. Well, today I was heading down the interstate, heading to Lakeland, and I listened to the Joy FM. And they had a wonderful conversation. They were going like timeline, minute by minute, what was happening that day. And I'm just sitting here driving and I'm just crying. I'm like, I really need to pull over and thank God for waterproof mascara because I was uncontrollable. So, but I remember that day and it was totally different. I'm down here in Florida. That happened up in New York, but it affected all Americans.
Everybody.
I don't care where you were. But for you, it's a different story. And so that's why I want to talk to you. What happened to you on 9/11?
Well, I had a meeting in New York, New York City, and I was in One Liberty Plaza, which is right across the street from the World Trade Center, about 1 block away. And I was on the 33rd floor in a conference room. Our meeting had just started, really, and it was floor to ceiling glass, and we were overlooking the World Trade Center. So that's where I was.
And what, I mean, I can't remember. Do you remember what level, what floor the first plane went through?
No, I don't. I think the first one was higher than the second one. I think the first one was in the 80s maybe. And because I remember being there in our meeting and we heard, you know, the building shook and we all turned around to look and you had to look up and you could see the explosion and we didn't know what had happened.
And then y'all saw that first one, and then what happened whenever you saw that second plane hit?
I knew something was really wrong because everybody said we would run to the other room and look at the TV and people will come in and tell us. And they said it was a small commuter plane, which is what the news was reporting.
Right.
And then, so we were all standing there looking up at it and you could, the papers were flying towards us and then somebody said there's another plane coming and we looked to our left towards the south, and then I watched the second one come in, and that one came in, I think maybe in the 40s or 50s, and because we watched it just swing
Almost
right into
eye
it,
level.
almost eye level.
I just can't imagine. I mean, I'm getting choked up just hearing about this right now. Well, so that day when you're there and you see them happening and you go into the next room and you're watching the TV, but really you're watching this whole live experience, then where did you go?
Well, so we stood there and just watched for the longest time, and people would come back from the other room and give us reports. But I knew, I mean, the hair on my arm stood up, and I knew this is not right.
Yeah.
You know, there were people in the meeting there that were from New York. There were people from New Jersey, Chicago, San Francisco. And then the only 2 people from Florida were me and another guy from Fort Myers, or Naples. And, but I just knew it wasn't right. So finally I just said, I'm getting out of here. I'm leaving. And I said, are you coming with me? And he said, yeah. So I went over and I got my bag and my jacket. I had on a suit, and and we started towards the stairs. And when we got to the stairs, the security guard said, everybody's supposed to go back to where you were and stay. We don't know what's going on, stay. And I pushed him out of the way.
Wow.
And so Brian and I went down 33 flights of stairs. But then when we got to the lobby, they had the doors shut and we couldn't get out. They weren't letting anybody out because of the debris and what was going on.
Yeah.
So I stayed there and got really anxious.
Yes.
You know, thinking about, you know, we don't know what's going on. And then finally they opened the doors and let us out. It was after some time. And I remembered I took the subway. I was staying with a friend at 79th in Park Avenue. And I took the subway down and got off at the World Trade Center. So I'm like, okay, I can't go there. Maybe I can get a cab or find another subway station, but I didn't know my way around.
Now, I remember seeing on TV, you see all these people with all the white ash and dust and everything on them, and you could barely see. Did you have to go through that type of atmosphere?
Well, when we got out to the plaza, I figured out which way was north and south and where I needed to go. I started out north, so if the World Trade Center was here, I was right here, and I started out going this way. I got to Fulton Street and hung a right, and so went across Wall Street and Fulton Street, and I only got about maybe 3 blocks when the first tower came down.
Oh.
And when you're there, it's like you're in a tunnel, like a valley, like you can't see around you. So like you can't even see the top of the towers if you're angled the right way. So I didn't know what was happening. And somebody said there's an explosion, there's a bomb, and so we didn't know what it was. All I know is that it sounded like a freight train coming through. And then all of a sudden, all you saw was that dust cloud coming at us.
3 blocks away, and you saw the dust cloud.
Actually not even 3 blocks. And it was coming at us, and my friend was behind me, and I said, you got to get up against the wall. And so I got up against the wall. There was just like a little cutout, and just covered my face, and then it just came rushing through.
Wow.
And got covered in all the ash and the dust, and that's when I started praying.
Yeah.
And you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. Yeah. I couldn't hear anything. My ears were ringing, and really, I didn't know. I truly didn't know.
Yeah.
Am I dead? Am I alive?
Right.
I mean, it was just surreal.
Right.
And I was yelling for my friend, but you couldn't hear anything.
And he's right beside you almost?
Right beside me. Or so I thought.
Yeah.
But he ended up getting in between 2 cars across the sidewalk. And then we didn't see each other for like another week because we got split up. But then I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and I just started walking. I took off my shirt, tied it around my face. I was coughing and hacking. You couldn't see, and I just, and thank the Lord, I was walking in the right direction and kind of walked out of the dust cloud and ended up in Chinatown. And as I was coming out of the dust cloud, things started getting yellow and amber, and then you can see and start hearing, and then you see other people around you some, but everybody's covered in dust.
See, I never thought about it affecting your hearing as well.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of the sight. Okay, so you just said something. You prayed and prayed and prayed. Now, so a couple of things I want people to realize. One, you're a married man.
Yep.
You had a baby. Well, she was what?
2.
2 years old. Ellie was 2 years old at home. Your wife is pregnant with twins.
Right.
On bed rest. She knew where you were.
Right.
So she's watching this on TV. You're in communication with her or not in communication with her?
Not. I was trying to call on my cell phone. I mean, from the time I got into the lobby until I started walking, just dialing, and you can't. There was no signal. You couldn't get through.
So then you kept saying you prayed, but I know you, and at that time in your life, you hadn't accepted Christ as your Savior.
Right.
So what prompted you to pray?
Well, I would say I was religious, and I believed in God.
You just didn't have the relationship.
I just didn't have the relationship. Yeah. And I didn't, I guess I wasn't all in, as Tommy likes to say. And I went to church. We were active in Sunday school. And I kind of went through the motions.
Yeah.
But I think it was then that I just said, and I didn't really bargain with God, but I prayed for Kimberly. I prayed for my unborn children. I prayed for Ellie. Please let them have a daddy. Please let them have a daddy. And please don't let Kimberly be a widow, you know, at 28 years old or 27 years old, however old she was then. And I said, if you get me through this, I'm all yours. You've got me. And when I started walking and I came out of that, I said, I'm all yours.
Wow.
I'm all yours.
So, and that was interesting too, you know, that is something I think whenever you speak with people since that happened, that is one of the first things that come to our mind is our family. You know, when something like this happens, you're like, oh, how's my family? And we need to realize that, I mean, we go through hurricanes here, and there's a horrible storm getting ready to come through the Carolinas, you know, and people have tornadoes and stuff, and tragedy happens in our lives. And so, but all the things that we hold on to really are just things, except that family.
Right.
We hold on to our family, and we think of our family, and we think about, you know, our relationship with Christ is the most important thing.
Right.
So since that time, and you asked Jesus to come into your life, and so how did that affect your family from now on?
From then on?
Yeah.
I would think it just put everything in perspective for me. I mean, my relationship with God became number one, and my family became number two.
Yeah.
And then everything else after that kind of falls into place.
Absolutely.
And I would say that's it. And, you know, I want to be a good example to my children. I want to be a great husband to my wife. I want to be a great dad. I want to be a great friend. I want to be a great son, a great son-in-law, a great brother, a great brother-in-law. You know, it just really put things in perspective. Like, how can I help lift other people up and be a better man?
Absolutely.
You know, and sometimes even if that means sacrificing some things, or not going to do something, or you know, making difficult decisions. You know, I found myself now where I like to surround myself with my friends and my family, my close friends and family, and there's no doubt that I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's just kind of my safe place.
Yeah.
Kimberly got me this book called 9/11 Syndrome, and it talks about retiring to your safe place, and there's only, you know, certain people that I really, really can open up and be myself around, where before I would say I was more open, fun-loving, you know, but now I'm very guarded. With a lot of that.
Yeah. Now, because I remember when things happened, even just my little crazy ankle, not a life or death situation, when I busted my leg and I saw that vision of my foot perpendicular and everything, and there's times I close my eyes and I see that. Okay, that was not anything near 9/11. So you said you suffer from the
Traumatic,
yes.
Yeah.
So what, besides that book, I mean, can you give us an example of how you've suffered through it?
I talk about it. I do not like to be away from my wife and children. I do not like spending the night out. Like, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
I still watch things on television about that, but I would say it's very emotional for me.
Oh, yeah.
And even some movies that you watch, it's hard for me to watch those things that are traumatic.
Because you take things to heart now.
Yeah, I take things to heart.
Because you've
exactly
been through
right.
that. And so, and that is a storm in your life.
Right.
And we all have different storms and struggles and trials in our life, and how you persevere and make it through. It sounds like your safe place is your family.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I know today, though, I sent you a text.
Yeah.
And I said that, you know, I was thinking about you today. And because I know, you know, today 9/11 and what it means to you. I says, but I'm also praising God because of that, you became my brother in Christ.
That's right.
And then, do you remember what you text back to me?
I do not.
Yeah, you said you made my day.
You made my day, that's right.
And you have made my day.
Oh, thanks.
Being here. I love it. I love it. And I love you.
I love you too.
And I love your family.
Thank you.
And so is there anything that if somebody, look at them, If there's somebody going through something right now, and we are all going to go through things in our life, so maybe it's a takeaway that they can put in their back pocket for later. What is something that you can tell somebody whenever trouble and trials come your way or horrific things happen in your life? What advice do you want to give them?
I would say you need to pray to God about it and talk to Him, and find a good Christian friend, and open up your heart. Let all your walls down and just open it up, and you'll be surprised how liberating it is, and the strength that you'll get from that. It's just incredible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So a day of remembrance for all, and a day of new beginnings for you.